All the methods of divination in Greek tradition, from the most sophisticated to the most crude, operate on the same basic principle: the belief that the supernatural forces, whether gods, angels, demons, or spirits of the dead, endowed with greater understanding than humans, may reveal part of their superior knowledge through the phenomena being experienced or observed. Scholarship, following distinctions drawn in antiquity, has traditionally divided the methods of divination known in the Greek world between the natural or intuitive and the artificial or inductive. Such groupings, however, tend to be confusing, since even in the most apparently intuitive methods, some manipulation may be thought possible or necessary. They also impose a distinction not perceived by the great majority of actual participants, and have further been understood in different ways by different scholars. Oracular prophecy undoubtedly enjoyed the highest cultural esteem in the ancient Greek world. It was conducted at all manner of holy places, some of which transcended state boundaries and were highly institutionalized, although most were very local, catering to small communities and individuals. It also encompassed a broad spectrum of techniques, ranging from ecstatic utterance or frenzied behavior to the interpretations of the rustling leaves in a sacred tree or ripples in a sacred pool. The most famous site was Delphi, where Apollo was believed to speak through an inspired individual, the Pythia. But there were a number of other major oracles of similar standing, that of Zeus at Dodona, for example. At these important centers, a variety of complex rituals of consultation were conducted in elaborate physical surroundings to produce the oracular response. Questions were often posed by the representatives of cities and other such groups, and concerned important matters of state policy and law, although individuals might also make inquiries. Another type of oracle operating at high cultural level, and best exemplified by the tradition of the Sibylline ecstatic prophecy, did not offer answers to specific questions, but rather spoke generally about the future. Closely related to oracular prophecy was the interpretation of dreams, which were taken to be inspired by supernatural powers. At some major sites, and at great number of lesser ones, a god was believed to inspire the sick who slept there with dreams that either healed directly or told how to cure might be affected, incubation. Most notable perhaps was the shrine of Asclepius. People also commonly interpreted their own dreams as predictions of the future. Or else they might employ professionals who had training and access to the many textbooks of dream interpretation that developed over the centuries, and in some cases incorporated material from outside Greek tradition. Dreams interpretation illustrates quite clearly, the problems of drawing sharp distinctions between natural and artificial forms of divination. For although it might appear to be a purely intuitive technique, in many cases there was an obvious perception that dreams might be induced, either in the self or another, and the powers producing them manipulated. Related to this notion was a whole range of other divinatory techniques that involved the inducement of inspiration. Thus, in practices such as hydromancy, lectomancy, ketopromancy, where the behavior of objects or substances in a vessel of water was observed, or in more complex forms, medium saw visions on the surface of water or some other shining reflective material. It was believed that supernatural forces could be induced or forced by a diviner, or a sorcerer to reveal hidden knowledge. Often these powers were thought to be the spirits of the dead, and hence such techniques were perceived to be forms of necromancy. Other common and highly developed methods of divination in the pre-Christian Greek world included augury, in which that believed the behavior of birds was noted, horoscopy, in which the behavior of sacrificial victims, and even more importantly, the formation, development, and marking of their various organs, such as the liver or shoulder blades, were observed. Also subject to interpretation were the chance utterances of people and involuntary movements of the body, such as twitching or sneezing, itching, as well as the patterns found on various parts of the body, like the palms, palm checking. Natural signs were thought to predict coming weather, while heavenly events from thunder and lightning to the appearance of comets and shooting stars were believed to be very significant. From Hellenistic times, the sometimes immensely complex and scientific technique of astrology developed under Eastern influence, using observation of the regular and irregular movements of heavenly bodies. This either predicted the future or determined the most appropriate course of timing of action. Other simple and consequently very common techniques involving the reading the pattern in which it's cast objects, such as dice, grain, knuckle bones, or lots, fell, or the order in which they were extracted from a container. The point at which spinning objects stopped was believed to be revealing, for example, of the identity of a thief, and the significance might be derived from passages determined by some random method of selection in written text. With the rise of Christianity to dominance in the Greek world, the old, officially sanctioned forms of divination ceased to be culturally acceptable. Most had formally banned by the 4th century, and gradually fell into disuse. Oracular prophecy thus almost completely disappeared as a result of the Church's need to preserve the authority of its canon, despite having enjoyed some prominence in the form of directly inspired utterance in primitive Christianity, and in some heretical sects, the various types of divination related to animal sacrifice also vanished, along with the sacrificial rituals themselves. But although the new Christian orthodoxy claimed that all forms of pagan divination were evil and nothing but vehicles of demonic deceit, practice at popular level dictated that some at least would continue relatively unchanged. In the public sphere, incubation, for example, carried on without interruption, churches taking the place of pagan shrines and Christian holy figures, substituting as the source of inspiration. There is also abundant evidence throughout the Byzantine times and down to modern period that very many of the more private individual forms of divination continued to be practiced, and not only at local level, but sometimes even such places as the imperial cult itself. Mysticism, in fact, characteristic of the Greeks not to have invented a separate abstract term for the kind of experience they deemed inseparable from true philosophy and theology. What we do have in Greek are terms for mystery, mystic, and mystical, deriving from the verb muain, to close the eye, to initiate into the mysteries. Those terms denote that which is hidden, that which lies beyond the realm of ordinary existence. In this video, we are looking at the broad definition of mysticism, the quest for an experience of unmediated contact with the divine, alongside the anthropomorphic polytheism of Greek religion, there was an alternative form of religion, represented by the mystery cults. These offered a direct apprehension of the divine unattainable within civil religion. Of these cults, the Eleusinian and Dionysian mysteries are of particular importance. The origins of the Eleusinian mysteries are pre-Hellenic. They consisted in the reenactment of the myth of Demeter, the Earth Mother, and her daughter, Kore, or Persephone. They involved several stages of initiation, producing fellowship with the goddess and cultivating with the beholding of the revelation of these deities at the shrine of Eleusis,